Okay, we'll go in 5, 4, 3, 2. Krista Raymer, Happy New Year.
Jay, we have a new look and feel. Look at us. New
I
year, new cultivated.
I know you can tell it's New Year's because I'm wearing a hoodie. Um, it's actually my birthday. Your birthday was this week too, but it's so cold here in Toronto that once I put my birthday gift on, it's too close. It's too cold to like change clothes, so I kept the hoodie on.
You're just snuggled in.
It's very. You need to snuggle in today. It's like
North
it's
America has a snowstorm.
it's like
Basically, like
-12. I think it's like
yeah.
really cold today. That's like in the teens in Fahrenheit. So you get me in a Roots hoodie today.
Isn't Dallas supposed to get a snowstorm too this week?
I don't think so. Like I think it's supposed to get warmer. I don't really know.
Georgia?
I'm not going.
Georgia's supposed to get snow. There's like a whole situation, I think, today, tomorrow.
There's a sitch. I'm not paying
Yeah.
attention because I'm not going to go outside today.
Okay, great.
Although more
Love
than I
that for
already
you.
have. Although I do. We have hockey today, so there's that happening. Krista, it's New Year's,
Mhm.
and I just saw some numbers. December was a very good month for cannabis sales, but I
Yeah.
actually want to focus on 2025. We
Okay.
often talk about there's big moments during the year. I think the
hmm
biggest ones that we often get noticed is 420, of course,
hmm hmm
building around that. It's also Green Wednesday, and then the
hmm
December holidays. But we've talked about this before, but I want to put
hmm
a point on it. Like, there's something every month, at least one thing every month that you could be building around in terms of sales, loyalty, customer acquisition. Like, talk a little bit about how you think about a year because it's January. Like, what should retailers be thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things that we want to think about when thinking about a year in terms of promo calendars, inventory and assortment, customer behavior is to really dig in and say which times of the year do we have an opportunity to attract more customers, increase the amount that our pre-existing customers are spending, or increase the frequency to which our pre-existing customers are purchasing. So if we make the assumption that we have like top of funnel, a bunch of new customers coming into the doors, how do we convert them? And then how do we basically get them past 3 transactions? And then once we have them past 3 transactions, where are there opportunities to maybe sprinkle in an extra transaction, which could be a mix of either inserting like a transaction that the customer wasn't intending to buy, and also like basically pulling a transaction maybe from another retailer into your retail environment and trading a number of annual transactions into your store. The thing with holidays 420, specifically kind of like Black Fridays, it has a tendency to pull and push around demand. So customers will wait until 420 and or then push out purchasing after. And so when you look at April kind of has a tendency to come up flat, even though we have these peaks around 420. What's super interesting is like being more aware of what's going on in the customer's life. So, first peak that we see a bit of a lift and change in behavior versus like the average. So, if we just take a trend line of 4 to 6 weeks before and then say what things change behavior, Super Bowl is a big one. So, that's coming up as well as March Madness. March Madness has a tendency to be like the beginning of when we see sales lift over and into the summer. And like month over month, it's not totally fair because January and February don't have equal days, and then March has not the same number of days as February. But March actually usually sees about 11% lift over, say, for example, February and January as baselines. So that's really the beginning of something that's interesting and going on, and the behavior that we see the customers purchase within that. I
Yeah,
think like what's really interesting to think about if we think about the customer and the customer's life, a lot of people actually, if we look at credit bureau information, a lot of people make more payments towards their credit cards in January. And so we have a tendency when we watch customer spending to diverge their dollars into other areas. I'm sure it's a bit of a recovery after the holidays. And so there's literally just like less dollars usually for the customer to spend on things like cannabis. And
but
so that's one of the reasons why we typically see January a little bit down, is we've got to think about like where the dollars go.
right. And then you think about, and I just did a quick look while you were talking. Like January just said more people paying down their credit cards, less available cash. Uh, the weeks are all weird because they just came back from holiday, all those things.
Yeah.
March this year has 5 weekends. The first is a Saturday.
hmm
So,
hmm
right, they have 5 weekends.
Yep.
420 is on a Sunday this year. Like, I
Yep.
don't know, like that to me seems good for that weekend, but also if it's a Wednesday, then you can spread those sales over weeks. Like, this is the type of thinking that you do with your clients, because it is important to think about what you're going to be doing in 5 weekends in March around 420, as you go into May 24 here in Canada, but also
Yep.
Memorial into the summer. Like, how much in advance do you want to be thinking about these holidays, or do you want to think about them holistically and like sit down now with your team in January when it's relatively slow and say, here's what
Yeah.
we're doing, or here's the sort of rough sketch of where we want to be as we head into these holidays?
Well, one of the things that everybody's going to have to do is start to put together marketing budgets if they haven't already.
Right.
And so deciding where and how we're going to allocate resources is one of the areas that would go into exactly what you're talking about, which is promo planning. So what we typically would want to do is lay out the entire year and decide where are there opportunities and what areas of opportunity do we want to focus on. Is 420 an opportunity to acquire more customers? In some states, maybe. In other states, it might just be about getting the customer that's already shopping with you to spend a little bit more. And so, identifying what holidays are going to be play what role for you over the year, and then getting really nitty gritty with what's going on in the quarter, one quarter at a time. And so, basically, right now, we're having all of Q1 planned and starting to plan out Q2. And that way, you have an opportunity to make sure you have the right inventory in the store at the right time. And you also have the right vendor relationships, because at the end of the day, all of these brands are also wanting to connect with customers during these times. And so, um, being able to plan that and have like an articulated goal is really helpful in making sure that everybody sees success in what you want to get as an outcome.
Yeah. And I would just say one other thing, because I think we talk about this a bunch, is that it's very rare that this year for your local dispensary looks similar to last year. Even if you have good data over the past 3 years, every market changes dynamically. Like, I think about New York. One, there's way
Yeah.
more competition this year in New York than there was this time last year. That's like one consideration. Two, there's way more brands. And some of the
Hmm.
brands have really done great. And there's more brands
Hmm.
sort of fighting their heels. And there's some brands that have gone away. There's new
Yep.
product. Like, it's 3 dimensional or even 4 dimensional chess, because your neighborhood has changed, the products have changed, the customers have changed a lot, your staff may have changed. Like, and then overlaying that, like, what are we going to do through the year? Like, I say this almost every week. Like, retail's hard.
I mean, even if you think about how your customer is experiencing January, like think about your own mindset in January versus your mindset in June. Very, very different. And that influences the way people make decisions around how they spend money. Now, there's going to be a certain level of customer behavior that might be very consistent over the year. They're going to represent a very small group of customers, but a lot of revenue, to be honest. Like they punch way above their weight class when it comes to percentage of revenue. But then the majority of your customers are going through these different cycles. And so, how do you be relevant? And that's like promotions, offering newness, offering something that is relevant to the customer is so much more impactful, than just say, for example, offering 40% off.
Yeah. Yes. We're going to try to
Yes.
stay away from the 40% off.
Yes,
I
please.
think I think in one of our ending one, or in the last couple, maybe the last couple of months, you talked about the breakdown of where it actually moves, where discounts actually move sales, right? I think you were
Yeah.
talking about like
Yeah.
10% to 15%, but
It's
above, like,
usually a waste.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like you're
Yeah.
giving away
And
money at some point, right? Like,
yeah, like the customer was going to buy it anyways. And so then they're just
right,
getting a couple dollars off. Whereas 20% has a tendency to actually change behavior. What I don't see enough though is when team members do the math to say, okay, if we price this at 20% off, how much additional velocity do we need to sell to break even on the same amount of sales? And that is not as simple as just saying 20%, because it's going to come down to margin dollars at the end of the day. So doing that exercise is really, really helpful sometimes in deciding like what is the promo, and then do we think that that promo is going to achieve those outcomes, as opposed to just saying, well, let's get more customers to purchase it. And then if we see a lot of transactions associated with it, it's effective. That's not necessarily the case. Promos are complicated to understand if they actually create incremental lift, or if we're just trading dollars around.
right, and even to calculate other things, like if 20% discount, like we need to increase sales by some amount, but also
Yes.
if 20% discount get 5% more people in store, what are we doing to
Yeah.
capture that 5% into our loyalty program? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot into that. And if of those people that are taking advantage of the 20%, is there something else we can offer them that goes along with that 20%? Like there's just, there needs to be some clear thinking to even see if that 20% is actually achieving goals financially or otherwise.
Yeah, like most dispensaries are sitting somewhere between 40 and 50% conversion rate from their first transaction. So what that means is, let's say we use 20% off to get the customer into the store. Only on the high side, if you have very good conversion, maybe you're going to get 50% to make a second transaction. So if the first transaction doesn't financially make sense,
Right.
and we only get 50% to the next one, how do we rationalize that? And that's like also thinking about how we connect customer acquisition costs back to promotional calendars, and also what types of promotions we have going on. So when is a promotion there to incentivize spend? When is it there to bring in more customers? When is it there to increase the amount that the customer is spending? And there's like very distinct levers in what we want to focus on to be able to achieve those.
Yeah, I would just call Krista and she could help me with this.
Yeah, call us. We can help you build out a promo calendar.
Or visit their website to get the downloads.
Yeah.
Anything, so let's shift gears for a sec, because of course this is our first connection in 2025.
Yeah.
Anything you're looking ahead to in 2025 that is new, innovative, interesting, you'd like to see? Like if you had a genie in a bottle, you would say, I wish all retailers would think about this in 2025, and that would get them in a much better place for when we have this conversation in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, guess I kind of alluded to it. I wish and I would hope that in 2025 we can get more retailers to think about how much incremental velocity we need to create when we have discounts. We have incredibly high discount rates right now in the industry in most states, ranging in some extreme cases and some kind of minor. But are we doing the math about how much additional velocity we need to generate to be able to offset that? And the second thing would be paying attention to category management as opposed to only SKU management. So, do we see, say, for example, if we put eights on promo, do we see a lift in flower sales, or are flower sales just basically the same? Have we traded out somebody who was going to buy a half ounce for eights? Like, are we inadvertently or unintentionally creating an environment where the customer's trading down their spend? And so you don't really get a sense for that unless you are managing inventory by a category and subcategory basis as opposed to only a SKU basis. And so refining categories, make sure that when you're looking at categories, you're not looking at them as big chunky parts of more than 20% of the business. And that can be really helpful.
Yeah. That is super helpful, and we will continue this conversation hopefully every Thursday as we head into later in
2025.
January and into
Yeah.
those 5 weekends in March even. Krista, it's always good to connect with you. Happy New Year to you, and happy birthday to you. Your birthday was this past week as well.
Thank you. I'm so glad that I got to spend my birthday and your birthday together.
It's nice, right? We didn't even
Yeah.
know until we got on the call today that it was each other's birthdays this week. It's also my son's birthday tomorrow, so happy birthday, Sai. He turns 11 on the 10th. I'll just tell you, he's 40 years and 1 day younger than me. We're spending it doing loads of hockey. Hockey last night, hockey today, hockey all weekend.
Sounds like a
We're
dream
all
for
just,
both of you.
what's that?
I said, sounds like a dream for both of you.
You know it is, and I
Yeah.
probably be wearing the sweatshirt all weekend. Krista, thank you so much. Again, we will connect with you next week, next Thursday, on Cultivated Live. Thanks, everybody. Follow us on LinkedIn. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Get our newsletter inbox every single day at cultivated.news. We'll see everybody next week. Thanks, Krista.
Thanks, Trey.